Iowa spring football practice is here. The open practice and our only opportunity to see the Hawkeyes. Who to watch, what to watch today. Locked on Hawkeyes.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome in once again. I'm Trent Condon, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. I've been covering the Hawkeyes for over 20 years on the radio across the state of Iowa, including currently you can hear me on the Iowa Sports Radio Network with stations all across Iowa, Iowa City, Cedar Rapids, Quad City, Sioux City, and our flagship 106.3 KXNO in Des Moines each weekday from noon to 2. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Lots to get into today. We will talk about the Iowa baseball team, a miraculous, beautifully Heller Ball Game 1 victory against Indiana in their weekend series against the Hoosiers, and another one that just adds to that resume, your first place Iowa Hawkeye baseball team. We'll also be joined by Elliot Clough from the Rivals site, HawkeyeBeacon.com. Lots of thoughts of what's going on inside the transfer portal. I was still searching for some candidates there, both football and basketball wise. We will get into that coming up with Elliot Clough and a lot of good conversations for somebody on the Iowa Hawkeye beat. But we begin with what we're going to see on Saturday, and that is the open practice for Iowa football. It'll be our only glimpse at this football team, and have just a number of things that we want to run through. A couple of names of players I think are going to be important to keep your eye on, and the other part is just some general thoughts about this open practice. We come into a season that is like many others. Outside, there isn't a whole lot of thought about Iowa being a contender for a Big Ten championship. Not many people believe that Iowa can put together enough to make the college football playoff and probably even be in contention in that top third of the Big Ten this year. And on the surface, I definitely agreed with that. As the season came to a close last year, I had some major concerns, and I want to see what we see on Saturday that is maybe going to alleviate some of those concerns. A couple areas that I'm really looking at and I think are going to be important to keep an eye on, starting with the offensive line and two parts of the offensive line. Every day, as you know, the importance that I place on offensive line, continuity on the offensive line. And though I'm not breaking down film, I'm not seeing things and I'm not getting the all 22 and being able to decipher exactly what it is. You can tell a well-oiled unit as it pertains to an offensive line. But I want to see first the left tackle. So as we've talked about, the addition of Bryce George out of the transfer portal, they beat USC for his services, a guy that people think can come in and start at left tackle. However, I don't think you know until you really get him here. And until that happens, until he's on campus, and until he's going through workouts and then starting in August with August camp, we're really not going to know. So it's still incredibly important to find out between Jack Dotzler and Trevor Lauk, who's going to be that guy at left tackle and who's going to have the inside track to potentially getting that starting job if we do find out that Bryce George is not a left tackle, that at the Big Ten level, it's too big of a stretch, however that turns out to be. And if not, of those two guys, also the opportunity for both of them to either do some more work inside. George Barnett likes to have the guys with the versatility up front, playing both inside and outside, play guard, play tackle, being able to do the inverse and going back and forth. And seeing if it's not at left tackle, if those guys can find a pulse. And the other one is Cade Pieper. We've seen Cade, he played a lot last year when they were doing the 6 offensive lineman formation. It wasn't a ton last year, maybe a handful of snaps that he was in there, but he's not the biggest guy, certainly for a guard, not the biggest guy out there, but a small town Nebraska kid that just continues, I think, to defy the odds. And when he started showing up early in his tenure, and even during his freshman campaign, his name was mentioned by the coaches a couple of different times. You thought you had a good one there, and just seeing how that's going to translate. The other position group that I really want to see for Iowa and how this is going to shake out is a linebacker. So you got a bunch of veterans, guys that have been around for a long time, guys that have been playing special teams and just Haven't been able to obviously unseat what you've had the last 2 years with Jay Higgins and Nick Jackson. And now we got an opportunity to see. Carson Shire, are you finally the guy? It's been about health with Carson Shire, but can he put it all together? Can he stay on the field, most importantly? Because I don't think it's a physical problem. I don't even know if there's a concern about the lack of reps that he's had at linebacker just because they believe in the physical gifts. He has to be able to show that he can stay on the field. Other guys, Jaden Harrell. I saw him over at Wrigley Field 2 years ago. He was part of the goal line stand against Northwestern in that game. Just haven't seen a ton of them. And the Iowa scheme, it does allow, certainly the middle linebacker, you're going to pile up tackles. Look, you can be not a great player, but in the Iowa scheme, you're going to put up good numbers as that middle linebacker for the most part. But also to see if there's a difference maker. And when you go through and you look at the guys like Reese and Weisskopf and those young linebackers too, kind of how that all sorts itself out. And of those young guys, who's going to have a chance maybe to step forward this year and to get some minutes. So linebacker, I think, is another important piece to look at here. Good linebacker play. Look, we've seen both sides. And I think we can all remember instances when the linebacker play was not elite. And we get spoiled sometimes. So we've had some great groups and some great individuals at the linebacker spot over the last 25 years. However, when it goes bad, when you're digging down the depth chart a little bit, it can get ugly in a hurry. So that's what I'm going to be looking for at the linebacker spot. One other on the defensive side of the football, and that is just how this defensive backfield in general kind of comes together. So Phil Parker earlier this week, we talked about this every day, as you know, about TJ Hall, maybe sending himself as that number one corner. They add to the roster with the addition of Shaheed Barrows from South Dakota. Got that commitment on Friday. So you add that one to the list. So you have that happening. And adding depth, probably fighting Deshaun Lee for that second cornerback spot. But you have depth there. You have a veteran that's added to the mix. But short of that, I just want to see how this looks defensively now with Xavier Wamp. Xavier Wamp now shifting over to free safety after being the starting strong safety the last couple of years. A lot of people believe that this works out a lot better with his skill set, that over at free safety, he's going to be able to roam, do some of the things that make him better, and just keep growing. Yeah, he was benched last year, a couple of different times. We know it's not, again, anything about physical talent, but the mental reps, doing all the things, doing everything that is important, putting all those together, that's going to be something certainly to keep an eye on. With it, as Wampa moves over to free safety, seeing what they're doing with Zach Lutmer and Coing Entringer. As Entringer, is he the guy at strong safety? And then you got Cash with Lutmer. I know both those guys have been practicing in both positions, and just definitely how that kind of shakes out and how that's going to look, I think is going to be a big, big part of this. So those are a couple of the position groups that I'm looking at. Some names, speaking of the defensive backfield, I do want to see Jalen Watson. Played last year, burned his red shirt. He was a guy, though, that right away showed up on campus and definitely was getting some buzz. So I want to see that. What's some other names that we had here on the list? Here's another one for you. We haven't talked tight end very much during the spring. And we'll have a full recap of all the position groups and all the players here throughout the spring and summer months. But Zach Ortworth, we've seen it inconsistent at times. Remember Luke Lachey coming in and out of the lineup and a whole lot more. But I want to see not only Zach Ortworth and kind of what he's going to do, but just the way that he looks and the tight ends in general look in the Tim Lester offense. As we talked about, this wide receiver room looks a whole lot better. A running back looks to be in good shape. Quarterback, there's excitement there. Offensive line, certainly if they find a left tackle, you're feeling confident about that. Tight end, though, seemingly always a strength for Iowa. What this is going to be and what's it going to be maybe going forward in the new Tim Lester look. So that's just a few of the things and a few names to keep an eye on here during the open practice. In fact, we'll talk a little bit more about that with Elliot Clough from Rivals. He's going to join us. We'll talk to him about what he expects to see on Saturday over at Kinnick Stadium as things will get started. About 10:30, I believe, is the start time for that one. I know there's going to be a few things happening. Of course, the Iowa baseball game on Saturday also going on, so we will get into that. We'll talk also a little bit more about that Iowa baseball team and a 2-1 extra inning victory against Indiana. But coming up next, we're talking more spring football with Elliot Clough from Rivals. Some thoughts and a name way down the radar maybe you would not expect could be toting the ball for the Hawkeyes. That's as we continue on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles. You can play, of course, EA Sports, College Football 25, Call of Duty, Black Ops 6, and Avowed. As easily as you stream your favorite shows, it's gaming made simple, all on your Fire TV. With Wi-Fi 6, 6E, and auto low latency mode, advanced technology, Fire TV Stick 4K delivers smoother, more responsive gameplay with lightning fast speeds you need to stay competitive. With 4K streaming, watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribe services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. This is absolutely something that you want. You can play high-quality Xbox games at a fraction of the cost. How about that? If you are into it, this is the place for you with Fire TV Stick 4K, a device that is more affordable and easier to travel with. You can take it on the go with you or take it on the go for the kids. Absolutely, as a parent, know all about that. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller are required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K second generation, Fire TV Stick 4K Max first and second generations, and Fire TV Cube on the third generation. Amazon TV, Xbox, college football, Locked On Network here with you.
Elliot Clough, he joins us, HawkeyeBeacon.com, as we recap the press conferences from yesterday. Elliot, Trent, Ken, thanks for giving us a few minutes. How's things at HawkeyeBeacon.com?
Good, guys. Busy. It's slowed down a little bit now that, the men's basketball program has a solid roster to themselves, but portal is always going, recruiting is always going, and of course, like you said, spring ball this weekend. So staying busy, just not quite as crazy as it was last time we talked.
Good stuff. Well, there will be, as you mentioned, lots of things to cover here in the weeks, months ahead. Let's start with yesterday. My biggest takeaway was just listening to Tim Lester. A, he's a breath of fresh air, and B, how excited he seemed to be with a unit that's quite frankly underachieved over the last few years, right? And I'm guessing, product of a lot of things, maybe inferior quarterback play, maybe the offensive line, some growing pains at some time. But the receivers, they just seem to be, kind of running in quicksand. And for him to shed some light as to the reason why, about not understanding coverage, and then how excited he is about Howard and Seth Anderson. And I think he brought up Sam Phillips' name at one point. I think that this is a receiving core that is going to make us maybe forget about some of the ineptitude of previous years. He's pretty excited about that group.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's much easier to approach that group this year with less trepidation than in previous years, in my opinion, mostly because basically the whole group is coming back. Obviously, Caleb Brown decides to enter the transfer portal partway through the season, but you don't lose anybody to graduation. You don't lose anybody to the NFL. You bring back a group with a bunch of bright spots. I mean, Reese Andersey, we saw him play really well at the start of the season, and then pop against Michigan State again. And of course, you mentioned Dayton Howard, who had that touchdown against Washington, showed some really encouraging things. Sam Phillips, who I've been told is, and I quote, silky smooth on the football field for the squad. Caden Weegan in there, expecting to get more touches for the receiver group this year. Of course, we know he is an explosive play waiting to happen. And of course, I mean, there's another name that's been floated around in, Iowa circles. It's KJ Parker, who's entering his second year, his first spring going on right now from the Chicago area 3-star receiver, initially recruited to play DB at Iowa. They flipped to recruiting him at wide receiver. And, I've been told some really encouraging things. I'm expecting to see the field this year. Maybe not right away, but probably later on in the season. I mean, been told he has, again, and I quote, phenomenal ball skills. So he's a guy that I'm definitely watching for too.
We know the lifeblood of the Iowa defense is what they do up front. They're so technically sound, but they didn't have a whole lot of depth at defensive tackle. We've seen Pittman the last couple of years. He, at least at this point, just kind of looks like a guy. Next to Aaron Graves, though, Jonah Pace, we thought he was going to be plug and play from Central Michigan, come in and help out. But Bryce Hawthorne continues to turn some heads, the South Dakota State transfer. I thought he was going to be more of maybe a developmental guy. Sounds like he's going to be able to help out, according to Parker, here this year.
Oh, yeah. Yep. He's another one that I heard about pretty much right away when he arrived on campus. Described him as twitchy, kind of a freak in the weight room, if you will. A guy that he's going to be plug and play this year, I think. Jonah Pace, like you mentioned, the technical stuff, he's a little bit further along because he's been playing college football a little bit longer. But Bryce Hawthorne, a guy that was super under-recruited out of high school, just had the offer from South Dakota State, and then St. Thomas, who, again, part of the Pioneer League, They don't even offer scholarships. So he had that offer from South Dakota State, had some interest from North Dakota State, North Dakota, from OCO, Minneapolis, which is a suburb, OCO, Minnesota, suburb of Minneapolis, goes to South Dakota State where they're known for the development, becomes an FCS All-American. Some of those things that he might have had in terms of physical tools and that twitchiness starts to come through because he's starting to add some weight, starting to figure things out on the interior. Honestly, I mean, I'll go out and say it. I'd expect him to start next to Aaron Graves at defensive tackle this season.
And he's what? How many years he got left, boys? Any idea? 2 years?
He's got 3 years left.
He's got 3 years left. Wow. That's it's even better get than I remembered it at the time. So what else from Phil Parker? What concerns him, do you think, Elliot?
I'm sorry, you cut out right there.
What concerns Phil Parker about his defense right now?
I don't know that he necessarily went out and said it yesterday, but it's got to be corner, right? I mean, we've seen TJ Hall and Deshaun Lee play pretty consistent. I guess maybe not consistent, but they played a lot of snaps last year, a little all over the place between them. Jamari Harris, who sat out the final few games, and then John Nestor, who's now in the portal. It's really those two guys with experience at corner. Of course, Cohen Entringer played a little slot corner before, but pretty much just those two. Jalen Watson, who played some special teams last year, and Rashad Godfrey on the way up after impressing during bowl prep this last fall and winter. But it's got to be corner, right? Obviously, we know that they brought in Shahid Barros from South Dakota as a guy that will probably he's visiting. Gavin Edwards, a safety that's visiting from Austin P as well. So they're definitely looking to add something to that back end. It just allowed too many big plays last year. You don't have that seasoned guy like a Jamari Harris. You obviously don't have a Cooper DeJean. You're really looking for a guy, and it's got to be TJ Hall at this rate, who Phil commended yesterday, saying that he's coming along in terms of leadership, really starting to be more consistent. I've heard that behind the scenes as well. But it's got to be corner, right? You just don't have a dude going into this year. Of course, you hope it's TJ Hall, but they need some help on the outside.
Speaking of help, we know that Kamari Moulton comes back, Jazzion Patterson. We've seen both those guys. But then after that, there are some question marks. And I was surprised. I know you had a note on Nathan McNeil. The true freshman came in early out of Florida. Iowa beat Arkansas State and Rhode Island for this kid, but he's already turning heads at running back.
Yeah. I had a source describe him as lightning in a bottle to me. So he's an explosive play guy. TJ Washington's another one that we got to mention in that receiver group, the running back group. He's a really talented pass catcher out of the backfield. I've heard those two are actually pretty similar. McNeil is a guy that you mentioned Arkansas State, you mentioned Rhode Island, but Iowa State was starting to get involved. Northwestern was starting to get involved. Louisville was involved a little bit. So these other Power 4 programs are starting to recognize the talent. I think they noted that Liddell Betts had his clause, so to speak, in Nathan, and that he was going to end up at Iowa, so they didn't offer. But this is a kid that he reminds me of TJ Washington. They play similarly. It's like he gets the ball in his hands, and he's going to be a threat to score, a threat to make a big play. Really shifty, lots of speed. He's a guy that returned punts for his high school too. So he's a guy that can make plays in the open field, make guys miss. obviously, being that he's an early enrollee, he's still got to add some weight, got to add a few things to his game. But I know the staff is excited about him.
I want to ask you about an SC Southeast Polk kid, of course, senior now. Hard to believe Wampka's in his senior year. How they go by so fast. I know you had a tweet about him, and Phil Parker mentioned him. The move to free safeties, playing a little bit looser. I can't remember the exact quote, but I took that as a positive from Parker. What did he have to say about Xavier Wamp?
Yeah, said that Xavier was a little bit more comfortable with that free safety spot, probably a position that's a little bit more natural to him. Whereas at strong safety, those guys tend to be play a little bit more, explosive or playing in run support, make big hits. Free safety, we saw it with Quinn Schulte, kind of that last line of defense.
Mm-hmm.
Xavier, that allows him to be a little bit more rangy, use that athleticism in pass defense. Yeah, I just think that's going to be a really, really good fit for him in his final year. Allow him to put some really good tape out there for the NFL to get a look at going into 2026 for those way too early boards that you mentioned. I do think that's going to be a much better fit for him. I think we're going to start to see more of that 5-star look. That was obviously a huge thing for him coming out of high school, and we've seen flashes of it, the athleticism, the playmaking. He was good in special teams too, but I think this free safety spot's just going to be a lot more natural for him, a better fit that's going to allow him to make important plays on the back end of the defense.
Want to jump into a little basketball with you, Elliot? Let's jump into the transfer portal. Huge addition earlier in the week, able to go out there and get Fool Garris, who I think is going to be a huge help to what they're going to be next season.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not done. Kiza Giffa is a guy that you talked about a little bit on your board over at High Point. He's a guy that averaged 15 points a game last season, kind of a combo guard. If they could only get one more, a combo guard, a guy that can help out in the backcourt, or a true center, what's at the top of Ben McCollum's wish list if they could only get one more big guy out of the portal?
I know that they want a combo guard, right? A guy that'll complement what Bennett Sturts and Brendan I've heard it's Hawthorne. I don't know if you guys have heard that, but I thought it was Hausen.
It's
somebody will confirm.
The pronunciation guide that the university sent out was Hawthorne. Hawthorne is how they.
Hawthorne House?
No, yes.
Hessen House.
Right.
Hawthorne, yes.
Hawthorne, who's an elite shooter, right? He's not going to be a guy that's going to put the ball on the floor, get to the rim in the half court, right? Like he's just a sniper, a career 40% 3-point shooter. So you want a guy that can attack the basket. If Bennett's going to get some rest, like if we're being real guys, he's not going to play 39 minutes a game again this year in the Big Ten. That's just not going to happen. So you want a guy that can make plays for others, but can also play that 2 spot when Hawson's on the bench. That can shoot a little bit. I think Giffa would be a really, really nice addition in that regard. Played some international basketball. He's from France. He played at UTEP to start his career, went to Daytona Beach Community College, and then ended up at High Point, coached really well by Alan Huss. He's a guy that I respect, of course, headed to Creighton. But I would really like the addition. I personally think that they should try to add a true 5 as well, if not prioritize adding a true 5. Fool Garris, you guys look at him, he's super long, right? Will be an awesome secondary scorer, an excellent addition to the front court. I think he complements Bennett Sturts really well. But do you have a rim protector, right? Like you've got Cam Manial, but he's 6'8". He was really good at the MVC. You can get away with being a 6'8" center in the MVC. I don't know if you can do that at the Big Ten level. So that's a big question mark to me. Of course, you do want that backcourt depth as well. They do have Cale Combs, who could see some minutes this year. You'd probably prefer Giffa to have that secondary ball handler type of role. But combo guard appears to be their focus right now.
Final basketball note, Jaden Kuhn, one of the top prospects in the country from up in Northwest Iowa, Storm Lake. Of course, the connection to Ben McCollum. I know he was visiting him just yesterday. UConn's been interested in him. He's got offers from basically the who's who of the Midwest. What's the latest on Jaden Kuhn?
Is that the kid that Cooper DeJean retweeted?
Yes, yes.
Good stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So as far as I could tell right now, Iowa is really prioritizing the portal and the class of 2025. And that is what they are prioritizing, right? They got to fill out their roster. I think Ben McCollum, even though going to his hometown, right, an in-state school, going to Storm Lake is really telling of how they want to prioritize Jaden Kuhn. Talked to some other people behind the scenes about him, and They offered him at Drake as well, so there is a preliminary relationship there. And, of course, having that Storm Lake connection is really positive. Jaden's really good, you guys. Like, I don't know if either of you have seen him, Trent, maybe at the state tournament, but he struggled with not getting shots to go down. But what I've seen from him, uber athletic, like the athletic you don't typically see in the state of Iowa, athletic on the basketball court. Can throw down dunks, shoot from outside. I've said it in previous evaluations. I think he has NBA 3-and-D potential. Super, super athletic. That's really his calling card. Can play defense, can swat shots, can get rebounds, can shoot outside. I'd like him to be a little bit more consistent at that three-point shot. But, man, getting him would be a home run start for high school recruiting at Iowa.
That is Elliot Clough from Rivals, talking a little Iowa basketball and some Iowa football. Always appreciate the time from Elliot as we take a look around the Hawkeye beat. A Friday night to remember for Iowa baseball, a hard-earned victory for your first place Iowa Hawkeyes. They did it in typical Rick Heller fashion. How? Next, Locked On Hawkeyes. The NBA playoffs are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team, the T-Wolves. How about the victory on Friday night against the Lakers, or diving into player props? How about 5 3-pointers out of Ant? Yeah, that's going to go a long ways. From 3-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets in a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. That's right, not before the game. You can do it during the game. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com to claim your $250 in bonus bets today. FanDuel.com. Your team every day. That's what we do here on the Locked On Network. I'm Trent Condon. Thanks for being with us here today. Heller Bowl. Boy, it shines through on a Friday night. 2-1 extra inning victory against Indiana. Bats, they had hits. They just couldn't come up with that big one. A solo blast in the middle of the ball game, though, tied things up after Iowa trailed for most of the game, down 1-0 until that 6th inning home run. It goes 2 extra innings, and then Iowa plays a little small ball. Runners at the corners, less than 2 outs. You got one of your boppers at the plate. And Guerin, they tried to bunt it early. Then with 2 strikes, he gets the bunt signal again, gets the bunt down, pushes it up to the right side. The runner scores from third. Miles Risley, the former Central Iowa kid from Johnston, comes across the plate in Iowa, gets the victory, and now moves their record to 18-4 in the Big Ten. Boy, what a win. Just keep stacking them up. We know the schedule is going to be more difficult. There's going to be some monster opportunities at the end of the year against Oregon State and against Oregon. But before that, just keep piling these up. And Heller Ball, boy, they do it again. What a finish to that one. We are finished, but no, not for the week. We will be back with you with a Rapid Reaction podcast after things wrap up over in Iowa City. What we see, what we hear, what we talk about as what happens in that open practice. And we got you covered here on Locked On and the Locked On Network. Locked On Hawkeyes, your team every day. That's what we do here on the Hawkeye side of things, but that's not it. We got a lot more going here on Locked On. For your second listen, check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings, and you can be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape. Find the Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll be back with you tomorrow after the open practice and hopefully some new stars for the Hawkeyes. Thanks for being with us. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Until then, go Hawks.